All going. It's Jai, that Aussie metal guy here with crannk.com. And today I'm having a chat with Rob Mollica, who spent well over 20 years in the heavy metal industry here in Australia. And his most recent release is with Abramelin, where he's playing bass this time, man. So, Rob, cheers for making some time to have a chat with Crannk and myself, man. I really do appreciate it.
Sweet as, brother.
Cool. I want to go right back, dude, and I want to ask, because I've kind of had a little bit of a look at your career. I know what you do with Abramelin. I caught you in 2017. We'll get into all of that. But I want to ask first, how did you originally get into music, and what was your first instrument you were playing?
So I was born in the 70s, like early 70s. And my mum had this toaster rack thing full of 7-inch records, and it had like the Beatles, Big Bopper, like, you know, cool stuff. And I was obsessed that this little thing could play music, and I was hooked. And I would have been probably 4. And then when I turned 6, I never really got along with my brothers, but my brother walks in my bedroom. It was my 6th birthday, and he throws this cassette at me, and it was the first Black Sabbath record. No cover, just the fucking just the tape, and I was hooked. And then one of my other brothers started playing drums, and he did that for a couple of years, and he just had a drum kit sitting in the garage for ages doing nothing. And then a mate of mine who, Linky, who is from, I don't know if you know the punk band, the Meanies.
Yeah. We
grew up together. And yeah, we played in our first band together, and we were called Headbangers Unite. I pulled that old drum kit out, and he had a guitar with a little practice amp, and he used to have to ask his mum to come up if he could come to my house, because I was like the bad guy. That was my introduction to music.
Oh, so it was drums first, man. That's cool, dude. So
yeah.
What was that band like? Was that like a heavy metal band or a punk band or somewhere in the middle there?
It was. We didn't know how to play our instruments, so I think we did "We Will Rock You" by Queen. And we did a cover of All's Quiet on the Western Front by an Australian Melbourne band called Fair Warning.
Okay.
And that was it. That's all we did. And then you know, life got in the way. I joined a gang. He ended up doing other stuff, and then and then you know, years later, I see him, like, it would have been like 5-6 years later. I saw him on a station at Flinders Street Station in Melbourne, and I'm like, "What have you been up to?" And this is probably about 86. Yeah, I saw him, and then he just formed the Meanies, and I just formed a band called Conqueror.
Yeah,
that was around 86, 87.
Yeah, was that your first real serious band?
Yeah, my first band was a band called Mental Disorder.
Yep.
Well, half punk.
I like that.
We did like some cool covers. We did like some Manowar, some Voivod and stuff like that. Yeah, with some members of like Necrotomy and stuff like that. And then we ended up forming a band called Conqueror, which Tim from Abramelin ended up joining later on. In fact, the first Conqueror show we did was in, I don't know if it was 87 or 88. And it was with Archron, which is now Abramelin.
Yeah, yeah. What was the metal scene like back then, dude? Like, as it was emerging and starting to grow up? Because you were there at the dawn of it all, dude, basically.
Yeah, it was cool, like, because I remember there was a few of us, you know, there was me and a few members of the Necrotomy, Shorby and Dean, and we used to go to the same school, and I used to bring a boombox, you know, and I'd just play, you know, Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Deep Purple and stuff. And we were like, let's go to a gig, you know. And we used to listen to the radio show on, you know, PBS and Triple R years ago. And we'd find out where these gigs were. And I used to go see bands like Tyrus and, you know, Nothing Sacred. But the funny thing was, we were metalheads, you know, but most of the gigs that were playing around were punk.
Yeah.
And, you know, you get the metal band playing with the punk band, you know. So we'd go to those gigs, and we got introduced to punk really early, which was awesome because I love punk rock. So
yeah, well, punk and metal just kind of go hand in hand, man. We've got like the Punk over here doing a lot of punk reviews for Crannk and that, and it just seems to have always been gone really well together, that punk and metal scene, for sure, dude.
Yeah,
I actually was chatting to Jeremy Kling from Venom, Venom Inc. and Massacre and all that, man. And he just got a punk band with Taylor, man. And they were saying they were mad metalheads, but they've always been mad, you know, skate punk fans and punk fans as well. So for them, it was a bit of a, you know, a guilty pleasure to crank up a punk band, man.
Well, the times were different then. Like, we didn't have internet, we didn't have anything. So all we had was as kids growing up, I hated, you know, school. So the only rebellion we had was music, you know. And I think punk, hip hop, and metal had a similar, you know, similar vibe to them, where it was anti-school, just fucking let's do our own thing, you know. And it was a group. Yeah. So I think that's why those genres sort of click. It didn't click with dance. You know what I mean? It didn't click with any of that. But they were streetwise.
Yep, and being the time that it was as well, it's not like now where everyone can kind of talk through the fucking joy of this thing here, man. You know, it was all word of mouth. So I suppose you were all kind of really close in that scene as well. Like the metal and punk scene were all kind of interconnected because you all had to lift each other up, and it was the only way to get the word out was word of mouth back then.
100%.
So how did that your drumming go from being a drummer to, you know, well, actually first I want to ask about your time with Hobbs, Angel of Death, man, because I noticed you played over with them for a short time, you know. That's
a weird one, because I don't call myself a drummer or a guitar player or a bass player or a singer, and I do all those things in different bands. I just like music, and I just put my foot in every pie I can because I just love it. And most of my mates are the same, you know. I don't say I'm great at any of them, but I enjoy doing them, you know. So drums was the start, and I didn't pick drums for any reason other than my brother had a kit in the garage, and I just used it. So that was an easy access thing. But then the way I got in the guitar is a bit of a weird one. I used to around. This is I don't care, but when I was a kid, I used to deal. Yeah. And I'm talking young. I started dealing when I was 12. I joined my first gang at 12. Yep. Started dealing, you know, I don't do anything like that anymore. But someone didn't have any money for weed, and I said, oh, you know, give me something to trade. And he gives me this Gibson hollow body guitar. And back then I had no idea what that was worth or anything. And, you know, I get this guitar and I started playing on it and stuff. Stupid me ends up selling it for like $100, thinking I'm a winner. Thing's probably worth thousands now. But that started me with guitar, and I started playing guitar, and I built, after that I'd sold that, I was spewing, I was like, I want a fucking guitar. So I built one, and I started writing the first sort of remnants of what my other band, Earth, when I was around 18. Yeah.
Earth is still active, are they?
Yeah, I'm just, I was going to do it in the lockdown, but I just finished doing another band called Butterfly. I'm just about to release an album, and I'm just about to write the new Earth record.
Yep. Are you able to tell us a little bit about like those acts you got going on, and a little bit about the sound of them too?
So Earth started off as a black metal band.
Yep.
Originally. And then I used to tape trade with like Dismember and Entombed and all these cool bands. And I just loved that sound. And then I just worshipped that Swedish sound. So I formed Earth to be that sort of band.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. You know, and funny enough, you know, I ended up touring with Dismember and doing sound for him and stuff like that. And it ends up, you know, Fred Espy, you know, loves the first Earth record, you know, and he raves about it. So it was like a big wow, you know. So that was cool. It's cool. But like Butterfly is a lot different. Butterfly is more 70s rock prog, which is what I grew up on really as a kid.
Yeah. It must be cool because, as you're saying, you're a musician. It must be good to have these little outlets and these different bands where you can create, you know, your different styles and genres that have, you know, helped influence and create you as a musician, man.
Yeah, and Abramelin's one of them. Abramelin's always challenged me. With Abramelin, I wasn't their guitar player. I was just a mate. Yeah. And, you know, and what Tim used to play in my old band, and he ended up joining Akron. And when Shorby left, they didn't have a guitar player. And Tim used to come around, and I used to just jam on the guitar with him. He goes, why don't you play? And I've just gone, I'm not playing guitar in Abramelin. I can hardly play. So anyway, so he just showed me the songs, and I was going to be the fill-in guitarist. and it just ended up being for 4 years.
Yeah, man. Was that like 95 to 98 or something like that, dude?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
and
man.
It was great. That's the thing. That Abramelin challenged me to become a better player.
Yeah.
And still to this day, like that last record it's hard for me. I'm not that tech guy. And when they asked me to play bass, I was just like, yeah, cool. I thought that's the easy part, you know. And then all of a sudden, I'm like lumbered into this.
It'll be known, man. Yeah, that Never Enough Snuff album is OP, dude. I'm a mad fan. As you can tell, I've got my Abramelin shirt from my pre-order pack. I've got my flag back here, which happens to have the Psychroptic one next to it, which is Dave from drums on there as well, man. It must be pretty cool playing with him over there on drums, man. He's another extremely talented musician. Like, they brought out the King album just recently last year. I had a chat to one of the guys from that. It was unreal, man. And then he's drumming over there with you guys. It must be really cool to have this talented pool of musicians to play with over there on Abramelin.
I'm just going to say I'm glad I'm the bass player. I get to drink on stage and they get to do all the technical parts. But yeah, it's definitely a blessing being in the band with a bunch of dudes like that. Even Simon's skill in singing and just, you know, knowledge of music as well. Like it's really good. Like most of the bands I'm in, I drive. Where this one I have more of a sit back and just let Tim and Simon and them do their thing, and I might throw in a couple of things, but you know, usually, you know, they are pretty solid on what they do, and I love it.
Yeah, man, that album was just highly anticipated. Mad metalheads in the underground scene here in Australia and abroad have just received this so well and was so excited, man. I know back in 2017 when I caught you guys, I think it was one of the first shows back. I think it was at the New Dead Metal Fest there in Adelaide, and it was an unreal show, man. What inspired you guys to go, you're sitting there back around 2016, go, yeah, let's get this going again, boys?
So it happened because I put on a festival called Metal for Melbourne for a really awesome chick called Greta, who used to run the store Metal for Melbourne. And she used to run the festival Metal for Melbourne. And then one time I just put it to her. I said, hey, I'd like to put this festival on again. And she's like, cool. So I got all these bands from the 80s to reform. And, you know, and Abramelin was one of them because Abramelin as Archron were from the 80s.
Yeah.
I wanted all original bands from the 80s to play this show. And so I rang Tim up and I've gone, you know, put your band together, you know, blah. He goes, yeah. Because at that point, they only had Matt, Simon and Tim.
Yep.
They didn't have a drummer and they didn't have a bass player. And he goes, I asked Dave years ago. I go, look, I'll ask Dave because I really wanted him to play, not thinking that I was going to be in the band. And he goes, well, we don't have a bass player. Will you do it? And I just went, yeah, stuff it. I loved it. And that's how that came about. And we were just going to do a couple of shows.
Yeah. Then
we jammed and we just went, as if we're going to do 1-2 shows. We're just going to do another album. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Instantly, we were just like, we're going to keep doing it.
It must have been really cool, man, when you got into those shows as a band to go, wow, you know, we're reaching a whole new generation of metalheads, but also the old guys from back then have also come along as well and joined in with the journey. So
yeah, it is weird. I mean, look, I'm almost 50. You know, we're all in our roundabouts 50s, except for the 2 new guys. We call them the kids in the band. But you know, like it is weird. It is actually fucking weird. Like, cause like I stepped out of death metal for a while, even though I was still doing Earth. Yep. You know, Earth would only play occasionally. It's my little baby that I just play with every now and then. But I was like doing more punk and rock and stuff like that. So I sort of stepped back. So when I came back into Abramelin, it was really cool to see kids I've never seen before, you know, and then old people. And it was just, yeah, it was good, man. I was like, I never thought this scene was still going like as strong as it was.
Yeah, and it must have changed, you know, you watching it from back then to now must have changed so much in terms of like promotion, even the way music is digested. You were talking about records and now it's like a lot of people stream it, you know what I mean, and think that's okay. It must be crazy to have seen this progression and this journey from you back then to now.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you know, I remember when MySpace came about, I remember an Earth fan made a MySpace page for me, and I was just like, what are you talking about? What's MySpace? I came to the internet late, you know, and then she's like, you better take it over because you're getting all these messages. And I saw this new avenue of like, just promoting yourself. You know what I loved about it? Even though I had my own record label called High Voltage, actually I've got the shirt on High Voltage Records, but which I still do. But what I loved about it was because I knew back then because a few of the bands I was in almost got signed, even though I didn't want to be signed. We did get signed. Earth got signed to Black Hole, and we got interest from Roadrunner, but I refused because I knew I had other mates in bands who'd been fucking fucked over by these labels. So that's why I started, you know, High Voltage, and that's why I loved the internet doing that. It fucked labels up from fucking bands over. Then bands were directly responsible for their own putting it out there, and I loved that new gen. A lot of people hated it. I embraced it because it meant it went back to the basics. You just write some fucking music, go in a studio, record it, and if people like it, it'll spread. If it's shit, you'll go nowhere.
Exactly, and it makes it easier to reach like people like myself. I grew up in a country area. I grew up in Brisbane till I was 15, then moved down to like a regional area in South Australia here on the Murray River. And you know, I know with the advent of internet and the way things are handled now, it makes it a lot more accessible. Where it was mainly like the cities where you could get up music, and if you're in regional areas, you found it really bloody hard to get, you know, these albums from the underground metal scene or decent metal bands, and you just had to be content with the shit that you were spoon-fed by the mainstream record companies, man. So
yeah,
when it all come around, it is so good, man. It's actually expanded it, but people on the other hand also got to realize it takes more than just, you know, like and subscribe on Spotify. Get along and support the bands. If you like the band and you love the music, man, buy the albums, buy the physical copies. You get that cool shit, the cool shirts, whatever else, man, that supports guys like yourself, man.
Well, that's the good thing about metal and a lot of underground rock and punk.
Yep.
I'm actually maybe not so much punk because punks don't have that much money, but
yeah,
metalheads are really staunch on wanting the product.
Yep.
And you know your techno fans and all that sort of stuff. They don't have that. They don't have that at all. Like what fucking, you know, techno bunny's going to go and buy the new fucking whatever techno singles just come out? They're not going to give a shit. They're just going to download it. Yeah. Metalhead want the fucking record. They want to sit in their fucking room with their mates and look at the record while they're drinking piss. It's always been that way, and I don't think it'll ever stop. I hope not anyway.
Exactly. Metalheads are hardcore vinyl lovers, man. I was chatting to Benno yesterday, and he said he had 5 of the Voyager CDs, all because they brought them out in different colour CDs, records, the vinyl of them, dude.
100%. And that's the thing, like, we were told, because, like, obviously I've got a record label, and I haven't put a record out for a while, but I've started doing it again. But, like, everyone was like, oh, you know, don't put physical out, just do internet, you know, just do, you know, all your internet stuff. And I was like, we just went, fuck it. We're just going to press this record. And within 2 weeks, we sold nearly 500. And that's a lot of records to sell, you know, on a lockdown, no gigs, you know what I mean? Just from us putting it up on Facebook, you know? And I think that's bullshit. I think if you're a band and you're a metal band, you're going to have more chance of selling CDs than if you're, you know, some fucking pop artist.
Yeah, definitely, man. I've got a nice big rack of CDs, and I always make a point of whenever I go to shows, like especially like as we mentioned, New Dead, I always take in extra money. I'm not much of a drinker, but I spend heaps on merch, dude. Heaps on merch. I'm horrible for it. I like a full swag of shirts whenever I go to those kind of things. It's a must to get along and support these things. And I know at the New Dead Metal Fest, Jason even had like a vinyl stall in there as well. At one of the ones I went to, it was unreal, man.
Well, it's people like you that feed the bands that are touring.
Yeah.
If merch wasn't being, you know, I mean, obviously ticket sales too, but like merch means a lot to bands. Like when you're on tour, that's your food, that's your, you know, that's your ticket.
Yeah.
If metalheads, you know, yeah, like I said, people like you keep it going, because otherwise, you know, it'd be too hard.
Yeah, man. And with the current state of things with the live scene, I had a really good chat yesterday about, you know, where we go from here and, you know, ticket sales and everything like that, and shows are starting to be announced. I'm of the opinion, dude, that we should really just focus on the live Australian scene and get that healthy again and really support this scene and lift it up. And, you know, one of those things is get tickets early, dude.
You know, even though, like, I hate this lockdown stuff, I think that no international bands coming over and blah, blah. Because what happened to me, because, like, I'm a promoter as well, so is Dave. Obviously, everyone knows Dave. But what I noticed was back in the day, you know, local gigs were huge. And then all of a sudden, these international, like, shows were happening, like Soundwave and blah, blah. And next minute, all the local fests just got smaller because everyone was spending their money on these bigger fests. So now it's just, I think it's going to bring these Aussie fests back. You know, I predict anyway, and there's going to be a bigger scene for the Australian scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
More
exactly.
people will go to see Aussie bands. Yeah, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of, like, the falls and the music they play there just because it's mainly not my genre. But I heard they announced a total Australian lineup for it, and I was like, fucking ripper, dude. That's the way to do it, man.
That's what I hated. I hated because I used to work for Soundwave.
Yep.
And you know, and I hated that they would never fucking put Aussie bands on it. They fucking would never put Aussie bands on them. You know, they might put one or two little fucking shit bands or whatever, but they just would never fucking do it. It pissed me off.
Yep.
It was just shit.
Yeah, well, another thing that we also mentioned is, remember when it'd be like every international band would have to have an Australian band come and get them? Like, guys like yourself played with so many bands coming to Australia because it was legislated. We had to have an Australian band supported, and we're talking about Segression as well, and Frankenbach and bands like yourself that really were able to make an impact playing live because you were playing with these international bands, and you had to be put on the list there, kind of, more or less, which was cool.
Yeah, it was funny because, like, years ago, before international, I mean, when you got international bands, you'd get bands like, you know, Iron Maiden, Dio. I mean, that's what I was going to say. When bands started coming out, and then it progressed to maybe Sepultura and Slayer. But for a long time, that's all you got. You didn't get your mid-tier bands. But then later on you did. But what I found happened was when those bands like, you know, Napalm Death and all those bands started coming to Australia, I think the music bar in Australia just rose because people were really, really thriving to go out and get those supports.
Yep.
And they just lifted the bar, especially with bands like Psychroptic and stuff like that. I gave Psychroptic their first mainland show in Australia.
Yeah.
Out of Tassie. Yeah. They played they opened a high voltage festival. Yeah.
And of course you would have seen how good they were back then and gone, wow, man, these guys are going to be huge, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And isn't it crazy, the scene, like, here in Australia, like, you have those bands like, as we're saying, Psychroptic and yourselves and these talented Australian bands, and they play to these so-so shows, and yet they can go over to Europe and just fucking smash it out of the park, dude. It's insane.
Yeah, the thing I like about Australia, and I see this in 100% in Abramelin and Are was Aussie bands have a different vibe. Like your Sadistic Executions and, you know, your early bands, you know what I mean? Slaughterlord, you know, Archon, they just have this crazy vibe to them. And I think that's because we weren't exposed to all these bands coming over and we just had our own thing.
Yeah.
And I absolutely think that it would never have been that way unless we were so secluded from the rest of the world. And I just love the fact that that's how it went. I love it.
Yeah, man. And the amount of talent we have here in Australia, it's like we've got to play most bands can really just play the hell out of it, dude. And, like, they got to play the hell out of the crowd to actually get people on board too. But also the good thing about the Australian scene is when guys like yourself do play a show, you're the same guys that's sitting behind the merch stand. You come out, you have a beer with the punters. That's the kind of shit you ain't getting with these big international bands or, you know, these bands coming over here to Australia that you're going to get with guys like yourself, man.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I just think Aussies are just a little bit cooler than the rest of the world. I like my American mates, I like the English mates, I like the Euro mates, but there's just something about Australia that it's a bit kooky.
Yeah.
It's a bit, you know, America's more outspoken. They're all about them, you know. We're about fucking hanging out and having a beer, you know. Like, you know, I just think Australia's just got this wackiness to it that just is special.
Yeah, and down to earth.
Comes out in our music big time.
Yeah, definitely, man. So what was it like with the making of this album, the Never Enough Snuff album, you know, going into the studio? What was the recording and production process like?
So we did pre-production. We recorded 3 songs.
Yeah.
Dave went to Tassie and recorded the drums. Then they got sent over to me, and I did the rest at my place. And then we recorded Never Enough Snuff, Full Gore Whore, and I think The Peeler.
Yep.
I can't remember. Nice but
play,
yeah, we did that. Yeah, we did that, and then Tim had these songs for years. He's had them for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So he went into the studio with Dave, and they just nutted out the gist of the songs. And then, then they just went. Dave went back to Tassie, recorded all the drums, and then Matt and Tim went in, recorded the guitars. I did the bass here at home, and then Simon went into the studio, did the vocals, and it was bits and pieces. I've never done albums like that. I've always just gone in as with the band and blah blah. It was pretty interesting, but I like it. I mean, Abramelin's a band you can do that with. You know what I mean? Because it's more like tech. But that's how we did it. But we loved it. We're all in touch with each other, sending snippets of what we've just done, and everyone's like thumbs up, and it was cool.
Yeah, and it's a fucking amazing album, man. It's been like, I love getting in my car, dude, and cranking it really loud so everyone else can hear it as well, dude. That's my thing. So the artwork is cool, man. I noticed Tim's like got some pretty cool shots in there, dude. Who done the photography and the artwork for that? Because that stuff, that's another thing. That stuff you're not going to get with a digital copy, dude. You're not going to have that specky little artwork and all the little bits and pieces and, you know what I mean, the book and all the other stuff with it, man.
That was a long photo shoot. We were all there. It was freezing cold. I felt sorry for Tim. I can't remember her name, but the girl who produced it and did the shoot, it's one of Simon's friends. He's going to kill me now. But anyway,
I'll find the link and put it up anyway, dude.
She set up her like this room with axes and stuff, and she did such a good job. That day, that shoot took probably
Michelle Steele.
Sorry.
Michelle Steele was the cover model. Is that the one?
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's Tim's missus.
Yep.
No, she didn't do the photography. That's Tim's girlfriend.
Who we got on there?
He's killing his own girlfriend.
He's killing his own girlfriend, dude. I've seen that. I actually did know that. But yeah. Martin Ready photography, was it? I think that's I've got it on here. See, that's another thing you don't get with the digital copies, man. It's all there.
But props to Tim and his girlfriend Michelle, because like it was freezing cold and they were pretty much naked in this room, like basement thing, and we were just like, wow, man, I don't know how they're doing this. Like steam's coming out of our mouths, and they were troopers, man. Like I don't know how they did it.
It looks really cool, man. It adds that nice little touch to the album, man, especially the themes that Abramelin have, man. Death metal to the core, man. It's freaking unreal.
That's all fun. Because Simon's just obsessed with horror. Absolutely. I've never met a guy so obsessed. I thought I was as a kid, but like, we'd always go and try and out horror each other with a new, VHS back then. But he's always been in a horror, and I don't watch horror anymore, but he's still watching them all the time. Comes, have you seen this? Have you seen that? I'm like, Jesus, dude, how many movies do you watch a week? He just loves it.
I used to be really into horror. Then I had a operation a few years ago, dude, and I've kind of haven't been able to sit there and watch them the same anymore. I can do the spooky ones, dude, not the full gore ones, man, anymore. I don't know what the fuck it is.
Yeah, he's fully got a taste for horror, and he always has, and that really. It really helps the Abramelin, I think, the Abramelin brand.
Yeah.
Like you said, with the artwork, that's all him. Like that's his brain ticking away.
Yeah.
I mean, Tim does too. Tim and Simon are the same pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, they're both crazy like that.
Yeah,
I can't think of that stuff because it's not in me to think about it. I'm just an old hippie, But them,
Nah, it's a really great album. You boys should be really, stoked with how it come out, man. Have you got any plans to maybe something in the future, or because this was received so well, has that put a little fire in your belly to maybe possibly in the future do some more, or just see how this goes first?
We almost will like, let's just do this album, call it a day. Right? Because we're old, we're getting in there.
Yeah.
But the response, and this is what I mean, like if it wasn't for the massive response, I'm not saying we wouldn't have done another record, or broken up or anything like that. But I think the response kicked us in like shape. And then Dave messaged me. Oh, actually, he rang me. And he's just like, what do you reckon we do another one? And I was just like, wow, okay, let's do this then. Yeah. So I think we're going to do another album.
That's
Tim's
good.
got a lot. He's got heaps more songs.
Yeah, I figured that because you said he'd had them written for like 10 years, man. I actually had this conversation a couple of times the last few days, People got to realise at home, sitting there watching this or whatever, streaming through their music, if you aren't supporting these bands and you aren't getting behind them, they're not going to bring out more music. Like exactly what you just said. Like we brought this album out, so well received. I'm seeing you guys all over the internet, interviews all over the place, reviews everywhere. It's done really well, and hopefully the pre-orders all sold fucking awesome, man. And that has obviously put a fire in your belly. And if that wasn't happening, you should go, well, fuck it, let's call it a day. This ain't happening. But since it kind of is going all right, you're like, maybe let's do something else,
Well, you're right. You're right. And I mean, and I hate admitting that because sometimes like you just, it shouldn't just be about whether other people want us to do it. It should be that we want to do it, and we do, but it does give you that little bit more of a push. Yeah. If you're getting this great response, it just pushes you into gear and go, yeah, fuck it. Yeah. People love it. We love playing together. We have the funniest fucking, antics on the road, and we love hanging out. We've known each other for years. Like I said, me, Tim, and Simon have known each other since the 80s.
Yep. And you put on amazing shows, dude. I was blown away. That was the first time I'd actually caught you guys live, and I was like, fuck, man, this is... I was instantly like, dude, this is the shit, man. Really, really cool, man. Yeah. So what have you got any maybe live shows planned, or what's to go? I know it's hard, all your borders are closed at the moment, everyone's kind of fucking all over the place, but have you heard anything at all? Or
well, I've got friends who own clubs and stuff, and we've been thinking, like I even said to Simon, I said, maybe I should, I think it was Simon I was talking to, but I was talking about maybe holding a date. Yeah. Holding a date, because when they announce, like just going up to a venue I know and going, hey, when it all opens, can we be your first show back? I was thinking of doing that, but yeah, I still don't know, because no one knows, because they're going to open venues and they're only going to allow 20, 30 people in a venue. You know what I mean? It's just going to be like, what are you going to do? Do 20 sold out shows?
Yeah. That's it. Like I was talking about the Outbreak show with Death Plague that's happening up in Brisbane on the 1st of August at Woolly Mammoth. And he said he's allowed to have 100 people there. And if they sell the tickets, then they'll probably put on a second set. But it all comes back to demand and whether everyone is going to get behind and support everything going forward. And now more so than ever, the live music industry and artists like yourself really need the punters to get behind and support the scene, because it's going to take a fair bit to get up and going again.
I'm not trying to get into conspiracies or anything here, but and a lot of people think I do, but anyway, I don't understand how the difference between 100 people and 50 people, what's the fucking difference? What the fuck? Just if you're going to fucking open the venues, open the fucking venues and let them do what they need to be doing so they don't fucking fall and die. Because if we lose our fucking venues, we're not going to fucking see anything.
Yeah.
And I blame the government for doing this, because the government is sitting there going, oh, you can only have 20 people in your venue. If you've got a 300 cap venue, what's fucking 20 people going to do for you? Sorry. What are they going to do for you?
Yep.
It's just bullshit.
It is absolute bullshit. And people don't realise, man, there's a whole list of people behind it. You've got, the sound engineers, you've got the people that put on the lighting, you've got the people that are setting everything up, you've got staff in the bars, you've got everyone else that make a living out of this, an actual living, man. Yeah, exactly. Trying to provide for their family and that. And people don't realise that there's a whole industry behind this. It's just not the guys that get up on stage. It was like for every dollar, I think there's 9 jobs created in the music industry. You know what I mean? It's unreal, man.
When this happened, the first thing to go was the music industry. Yeah. It was the first thing to go, because like I said to you, I worked for Soundwave. I worked for most of the festivals in Australia. And I was just about to go on tour. And when all that happened, we all just fucking lost our jobs. Yeah. Instantly. Dave, all of us. And we didn't get any fucking help from the government or anything like that. And we're the last to come back. Yeah. So we're the ones suffering the longest.
And who's the first whenever there's like a charity appeal or, something to help lift up Australia, bushfire appeal, the recent one that happened with the concert. Who's the first one to put their hands up and go, okay, let's get together? The musicians. The musician and the event staff and everyone behind it are always the first to go, let's help.
The first show Abramelin did back was for a benefit that I put on for the homeless in Melbourne.
Yeah.
We raised 10 grand. That's what I'm saying. The musos are the only ones that give a shit. We care about about making people happy, you know what I mean? And then we got taken out. And you're going to tell us that we can only have, like, the Woolly Mammoth. I love that joint. It's amazing. I love playing that joint. But having 100 people in your venue, that's not going to help them, man.
It's barely going to pay staff, let alone. Yeah, I know. It's crazy, man. And then you look at sports, like sports, you get how many thousand into a venue now? They're saying a couple of thousand. We can run around on a footy field and, you know, with whatever they're doing, tackling each other, but we can't have some people sitting in a venue watching a music, man. Like, really?
Yeah. And look, if it's as bad as they say, then we should just all be locked down.
Yeah.
Right? As bad as they're saying, we should not be allowed out of the house, right? But if you're going to let people out and let 100 people into a venue, just let it happen. Just let it go.
Yeah, I think so.
100 people, you know, 50 people, 60 people. It's the same fucking thing. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, man. I really want the government to do a little more, and I actually had a really good chat about this yesterday, about the whole live music industry and people getting up and supporting. So I hope everyone watching this really does get behind the scene going forward. You know, buy merch, buy music, get tickets early. Don't wait until the day before to grab your fucking tickets. Grab them straight up as soon as tickets are dropped. Shows are announced. Get behind this scene and support the heck out of it. Grab the Abramelin album. Check out Earth. Check out the Australian scene, all the talented bands we've mentioned today and everything else, man.
For sure. And you know what's funny? Even with this whole pandemic thing, I think the lockdown actually helped us sell CDs because everyone was just at home and like they needed new music. So a lot of people just bought our album. I'm not just saying that, you know, is exactly why, but I reckon it did help.
Yeah.
I think releasing an album during the lockdown was probably in our benefit.
Yeah, well, a lot of the hardcore metalheads like myself were like, okay, let's get in there and chip in and support, you know, and a lot of the dudes in the scene are lifting each other up, which is really great to see in Australia, man, you know, buying pre-orders, doing what we can to try and support the scene going forward, and guys like yourself in the industry that have really taken a hit over this, man.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Especially Dave, like, he just lost it. He lost it all. Like now he's got his merch. Yeah, but yeah, I felt for him.
Yeah,
and I mean, I've got a tour coming up in October, and I don't even know if that's going. I've already sold 20 grand's worth of tickets. I don't even know if I'm going to have to pay it back.
Yeah, I hope not, dude. Hopefully by then, like things, because August, I'm hoping that's not the case for you, bro. I really do, man.
What can you do? You can only laugh and listen to metal.
Exactly, man, because we've all been going through this, I suppose, anxiety and, you know, where do we go from here and what's next? So I suppose just crank the metal and try not to get fucking too bummed out about it, eh?
Nah. You know, it's funny. It's made me want to hang out with me mates more.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, yeah, because when we ring it, like, even with Simon and Dave and that, we ring each other, I'm like, fuck, man. You know, we always hang shit. I don't want to see you, cunt. You're an old fucking hack. You know, we always hang shit. But now I think it's like we're all like, no, fuck, I'm hanging to see these guys, man. Like, I fucking miss my mates.
Yeah, get in there and a gig, man, and, you know, rock out. And I'm hoping, you know, we don't have the old fellas sitting in the back with their arms crossed. Everyone gets there and shows how happy we are to get back into the scene, man. Rob, I think I'm going to wind it up there, brother. Did you want to do the last words or shout outs or anything I've missed in there, bro?
I just thank you and everyone else that's, you know, like, just raved about this album, and we're stoked. We're absolutely stoked. Like, I spoke to Simon this morning, and, you know, and we're absolutely stoked. We can't explain it. Like, you know, we haven't been a band for, God, 10 years or so, 15 years or something. And then to come back to this, I just want to say thanks to everyone that's bought the record and supported us, especially you. And, you know, and just that, because, you know, it just makes it more fun for us. And you've just made our lives happy for doing it, you know. So, yeah, thanks, man. And we will most probably do another album. And, you know, thanks to Dan Swano for mixing it. I think he did a great job. And, you know, thanks to you, man. And thanks to all you metalheads that, you know, that love it. Keep it real. Keep it Aussie.
That's the one. Legend, brother. Cheers, man. Massive horns, and hopefully catch you at a gig sooner rather than later, man. All the best. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon, man.
See you, brother.
Cheers, brother.